Since 2017, the Italian Wine Podcast has exploded and expects to hit 6 million listens by the end of July 2023. We're celebrating this success by recognizing those who have shared the journey with us and giving them the opportunity to contribute to the ongoing success of the shows. By buying a paper copy of the Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0 or making a donation to help the ongoing running costs, members of the international Italian wine community will be given the chance to nominate future guests and even enter a prize draw to have lunch with Stevie Kim and Professor Attilio Scienza. To find out more, visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Chin chin!
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today I'm traveling just about 5 miles downriver from where I live in southwest England, along Exe estuary to the seaside town of Exmouth, where my guest, Gennaro Effuso, lives and works and runs his business, Natural Growth Wines, specializing in natural wines primarily from Italy. Gennaro, it's a real pleasure to meet you here today. Thank you so much for being my guest. How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much, Mark, for having me in onto your show. It's absolutely my pleasure, actually, to be able to present natural growth wine.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's a pleasure for me that somebody with so much knowledge and enthusiasm and bringing in such interesting wines is located so close to me. So I'm glad we've met up. Now, Gennaro, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you ended up both in wine and in Exmouth.
Well, I'm Italian originally from Naples, so South Italy in Campania. It's been a long journey since 1997. I was hospitality based since, and I've trained from Italy around England. Obviously, wine as a passion that has grown on me through the years, and until I decided to make a have an input and build my own sort of venture. Natural wines is something that I've grown up with in a way. And it's something that I really wanted to find the place where I could, I said, make a difference. And I end up in Exmouth in 2019 when I was working for Livingston Manor with Michael Caine, and I was there until I decided to start off my own venture because Devon seemed the right place where I could sort of spread the the knowledge about it. So we just went on since.
Yes, you were working at Livingston Manor with my good friend Michael Caines, a very good place with an excellent wine list, and now its own wine coming from the vineyard in front of the manor. But that's another story. Your story is very interesting. So you grew up in the middle of Naples. You're a Neapolitan, a beautiful city, one of my favorite cities in Italy. A crazy city, a noisy city, and you're now living in a pretty quiet town on the seaside in Devon. So it's a little bit of a transition, but you're still by the sea.
Absolutely, I think that's what kept me staying. To be fair, because yeah, obviously traveling around for a few years. I think Exmouth is very much where I sort of found my route again. You know, by the seafront. Probably not the sunniest, but definitely a beautiful place to live and to obviously start off with the new venture. To,
Sure,
Natural
sure.
growth wine has been. I'm gladly to say that has been a developing sort of business since started in 2020. There's has been the natural sort of wine understanding as has and is still massively growing. Um, as well.
Yes, it is very much a new field, even though, as you say, these are wines that are made come una volta, wines that were made as wines have always been made. Gennaro, you started in 2020. That was a very brave time. That was the year of the pandemic.
Unexpectedly, yes, is when obviously I wasn't aware of like all of us that it was going to happen, so I had everything ready to go, and it was fun enough. It was literally a week before it all started that I was ready to launch, but that didn't stop me. Yeah, I had too much. It was all ready to turn back. So I still went for it, and it was we well developed from what it was meant to be a shop, a wine shop, to an wholesaler. And so I think as now is the nature of business is primarily based on wholesale, and gladly so because there's plenty of great independent businesses around Devon that are really as exciting as they can be to embrace the wine sort of concept. So
Good. I'm glad that's the case because it's not easy selling wines of any sort, and especially selling wines that are less well understood, perhaps amongst general consumers. So let's talk about what a natural wine is. There isn't any precise definition or classification, but it's very clear in your mind what constitutes a natural wine, the sort of wines, the sort of people that you want to represent, because it's not just the wines in the bottle, is it? It's also about the people who are behind that, their philosophy, their way of farming, their way of life.
absolutely, you're 100% correct there. These first, as you said, there is no definition as such, but I think primarily is there is nothing to define. Natural wine are just wines that are made in the right way. And as I was talking to one of the producer a few weeks ago, and he said, "Well, what we're trying to do is just trying to reestablish what our grandfather used to do. So we're not trying to bring no new movement, no reinvent anything, and is pretty much it. And as again, as you said, um, yeah, there is." When it comes to natural winemaking, there is a lot. It's not just about the grape variety, but is the terroir to consider in a large sort of a part of the vinification, and again the producer behind that is personal sides that really reflects into the end sort of product. As a matter of fact, you'll see, some wine producer that are really, I mean, by looking at that way of ease, you really can feel reflecting that into the winemaking.
Yes, yes. Well, let's discuss some of the elements. As you say, there's no precise definition, but the people that you're working with, the Italians you're working with, would define it, I suppose, as low intervention. And what does that actually mean?
As obviously as a law intervention, is considered the no action when it comes to the viticulture and when it comes to the vinification. And I think there is these are uh, obviously the main facts that we need to consider without taking no action like a human sort of action. So um, we allow in the soil and the terroir to do what they the best at, and making sure that um, everything that happens around the grapes uh, influence the grape as such, and then no chemical.
No chemicals, no pesticides, really avoiding those treatments that are going to affect the finished wine, but also affect the environment.
Absolutely. I mean, again, as you said, affects the fruit, and obviously refrain the environment to act on it, which to a certain extent, you know, we shouldn't be doing that. As a matter of fact, when we drink wine, we do want that environment to be to reflect and to feel the influence from it. And at the one of the major sort of facts about no intervention is obviously the when it comes to the vinification as well, that obviously most of conventional winemaking, the we're talking about when we're talking about conventional winemaking, we're talking about forced fermentation, where that is not acceptable in natural winemaking. And by saying that, we're talking about spontaneous fermentation, so without the initiation by using chemical sort of yeast. So we allow in the indigenous sort of yeast, the yeast that does grow around the vineyard and in the cellar, to act spontaneously onto the wine and give the real sort of character to the wine itself, which yeah, it does um influences the wine.
Okay, so that's a very important point. The native yeast, the indigenous yeast on the bloom of the grapes, once the grapes are crushed and pressed, that yeast will begin eating the sugars and causing the fermentation without pitching in yeast that has been cultured in a laboratory. And many winemakers I've spoken to say that the yeast is really the soul of the wine. So it's a very important part of the natural approach.
Absolutely.
Also, a minimal use of sulfites.
Well, yes, so far as the thing is one of these things that there's always a little bit of a misconception about it. Obviously, so far is something that in a minimum sort of quantity naturally do occurs on fruits, on sort of any product. It has any sort of fruits or natural sort of product growing from the ground has the minimum sort of life sort of shelves. But again, there is the major sort of fact that conventional winemaking wants to make sure that wines they do last as long as possible. They are as clean as possible, in a way that they don't yeah they because there's is a obviously a large sort of there's a large conversation to a large field to explore there, in a way that um, is by starting from the viticulture. If you use if you've not been really caring about your vineyard, obviously that develops all sorts of different defects, and sulfides are used in vinification to hide this defect. So that's unacceptable. But on the ultimate sort of stage, there is a little bit of allowance, which is at the bottling. And it's a very much something that some people, there is a large discussion there where some people obviously do allow that very minimum in terms of to preserve through transportation. Some people do not allow that in any sort of case, but there is very much a bit of a debate, which in any sort of case does not affect the wine at all.
Yes. So we're really talking about the minimal required additional sulfites because of to express the the purity of the fruit. So really, Gennaro, when we say natural wines, often these are the vineyards are organic or possibly biodynamic, whether or not certified. Certification isn't the issue. It's really about this approach, this philosophy to create wines that are as pure an expression of the terroir as possible. But within that, Gennaro, there are also uh, a number of techniques that natural winemakers might use that give wines a fascinating range of flavors. I'm thinking about, for example, some of the pet nat um, sparkling wines, or, for example, the skin contact whites, the so called orange wines. So we've really got ranges of flavors of wines that you don't necessarily find in conventional.
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
No, there is again the certification discussion about it, and as you well said, is definitely definitely shouldn't is not something that defines the viticulture and the vinification. As a matter of fact, I'm a great believer that you should know the people behind the winemaking, so you know exactly how it's made, because even certification doesn't tell you really much about how the wine is made. Going down to the pet nuts and the orange wines, these again, we're going back to the fact that are very old sort of vinification, where they were made in Asian sort of time, perhaps. Pet nat is the what recalls as a natural sort of fermentation. As a matter of fact, wines to be kept and to give the great sort of character were given the possibility to start fermenting and then reverse into bottle, where they would finish where the natural sort of fermentation would occur and finish.
I tasted with you the other night a fascinating wine made by Valentina Kubi, the Athenatus. That was a beautiful pet nat that I had never tasted anything like it. It was from the Corvina grape.
That's correct. Yeah, Valentina Kubi is a great example of all we're talking about so far, and she's a great producer in Fumane, which is just outside Valpolicella. And although she is really attached to her own sort of tradition, she has produced these a pet nut sort of style, which she calls, as a matter of fact, as antenatus, sort of connecting the winemaking sort of style and bringing it back to history. And she's producing this 100% Corvina, which starts in still open vat sort of fermentation, and then by cold stabilization, they slow down the fermentation, and then into bottle where the fermentation restarts and finishes off. So, and that's a great example of a pet nat sort of style. Obviously, what that does, it creates this. It leaves the wines on his own lease, on his own sort of residual, given a great sort of texture, great sort of building up sort of character. And again, the fact that the fermentation finishes off in bottle is almost, we're almost there to talk about re-fermenting in bottle, where he accused the little sparkling sort of sides of the wine, again creating that beautiful sort of texture.
Yeah, I thought that was a beautiful one. I really enjoyed that. And turning now to another wine that I enjoyed with you, which is of the orange style that we're talking about, the skin contact wine. Let's talk about the wines from Enos, very interesting range of wines from Campania.
That's correct. Yeah, Roberto is again a great example of yeah, natural winemaking. And what we tasted, we've tasted the Fiano and one of his Primitivo Rosato. And the Fiano is a great example of skin contact wines. Again, skin contact wines is nothing different than what they used to do many years ago. Skin contact is are wines, white grapes, basically, that through the maceration are longer kept on the skin, just as much as red wine is. So the white wine goes through the same process, so allowing the skin to remain in contact with the squeezed sort of juice, and yeah, all the goods from the fruits from the skin to give that great character to the wines. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure you remember the Fiano had these incredible sort of layers of honey flavors, chamomile, that is obviously all influenced by the skin sort of contact.
Yeah, a beautiful texture, Gennaro. A texture that had, with we don't expect a little bite of tannin in white wines normally, but there were very gentle tannins in there. So the texture, the flavors, the aromas were really intriguing and so different from a Fiano fermented in stainless steel, a more modern style, which can be, of course, wonderful too. But this is a different style.
Roberto is on Dio area, original denomination area of the Rocca Monfina, which is at the bottom of an extincted sort of volcano. I mean, the soil are solid volcanic soil, so great sort of character. Roots are they are allowed to be obviously deep down into the soil where goods and minerals do live. And I mean, by tasting the Fiano, I think is a great example of what Roberto does. But even his 100% Primitivo again is a wonderful sort of example.
Gennaro, I enjoyed these wines recently with you at a wine dinner that you hosted at the wonderful Salutation Inn in my town, Topsham, where Tom Williams Hawks has created a really lovely and high quality fine dine restaurant. And Chef Luke worked with you to match his fabulous cuisine with the range of wines that you suggested. But what I found so interesting with natural wines, and indeed as we sat around that table and I spoke with some of the other guests that night is how well these wines that maybe aren't the sort of wine you would just have standing up as a glass of wine on its own, but they are wines that are meant to be enjoyed with food, and food at all levels. Foods from simple foods, very simple foods, pasta or salumi, to the really considered and sophisticated cuisine that we enjoyed the other night. Tell us about why the range of wines you have, the natural wines, but above all, the natural Italian wines go so well with food.
Um, as we said at the beginning of the conversation, obviously here we aren't talking about wines that they wholly define the great variety, but the terroir, the environment, the yeast that grows around the vineyard, and obviously ultimately the winemaker sort of influence. So I mean, just by saying that, it just describes the layers and layers of character that goes through these wines, and then obviously that's definitely one of the things to keep in mind in terms of expression, wine expression, which obviously you know we said about the food, the wonderful food that Luke and Tom had created at the dinner, which uh, by the dishes by themselves were had layers and layers of flavors, which allows the wine to 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 be a playground, to pick from different layers. So you can imagine you know, the different character, the different element from the soil, which are able to pick from the dishes. So we're not talking about straight, um, straight sort of forward wine where you only go about few elements, few different flavors to play with, which is very much down to the conventional sort of side where you've got these wines are clean, uh, really uh, uh, simple in a way. But here we're talking about with natural sort of wine, we're talking about complexity that has enormous sort of amount of flavors and minerals that the food.
Yeah, and I think those flavors really, really help to bring out the complexity and flavors of the dishes. One of my favorites that evening was Luke's Devon crab with watermelon gazpacho and lemon verbena, which you paired with the Enos Fiano. And it was a really, really fascinating because you had a little bit of sharpness from, I think it would have been sherry vinegar in that gazpacho, and it was really lifted by that rich and complex Fiano.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right there. I mean, I found even the beef tartare with the next course, the beef tartare with the primitivo rosato, which yeah, it brings the dish, it brought the dish to a different level, and it's just purely because obviously the beef very highly sort of structured a dish, yeah, had the wine there had the possibility with the great sort of level of acidity to just elevate what the beef sort of structure was.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think for me, that's when wine and food pairing works best and is exciting, is when the wine enhances the food and the food also enhances the wine. So it was very successful, Gennaro. Now, Gennaro, I know you have a busy day today, so I think we'll wrap things up here. It's been great to meet you here, but it'll be more fun when we get together soon for a glass of wine or two. But thank you so much for being my guest today, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was absolutely my pleasure, and thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about natural wines and primarily about the few producers, which are the one that deserve the most accolades, I suppose.
Ok, thank you Gennaro. Ci vediamo presto. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Mark. Ciao, grazie. Ciao, ciao.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.